Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another round of Mind Your Puckin' Business with your host, Jeffrey Krunzman.
Thank you, Dougie Sticks, coming to you as always from the beautiful studios of Undefeated Media here in Bergen County, New Jersey. This is the Mind Your Pucking Business podcast brought to you by our good friends at the Bamboozle Project as well as DraftKings. We encourage you to go check out the bamboozleproject.com. Go check out winter gear, spring gear, which will be here sooner than later, although it probably won't be Rangers playoffs involved in that, but we'll get to that in a minute. Or summer gear, whatever you want to do, go on to the Bamboozle Project. Check out all of the stuff that they have there. And use special promo code MYPB at checkout. Save yourself 20% off your total order. We thank DraftKings for their sponsorship as always. This is episode 180, Ciento Ochenta. So if you're joining us and using the SAP features that are available to you this morning or whenever you stream the show, we welcome you and appreciate you tuning in. I was actually down in Mexico last week. I had no improvement on my Spanish, by the way. I have improved absolutely nothing from my vacation.
Zero improvement.
Zero improvement. You can send us your questions at any time at mypbshow@gmail.com, or you can DM us on the Instagram platform, which is all one word, at Mind Your Pucking Business. We respond to every single DM that we get. Sometimes they get lost in the spam folders, but I do check it, and I will find it, and we will respond to you there. You can listen to the show at any time on Spotify or iTunes is streaming, or if you're with us on this Thursday morning, January 2nd of 2025. You can be watching us live on YouTube or Instagram. So there we go. Happy New Year. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am good. Happy New Year. We hope all of you out there had a good holiday. We hope your Christmases and New Year's were merry and bright, better than your hockey team is playing right now. That's for sure. You know, you probably, I could take a guess that if you're listening to us, odds are you had a better holiday than the New York Rangers. Like the Rangers were not the highlight of your holiday. Like last year, I remember the game right before the holiday break where Kreider scored in overtime on a pass from Zibanejad versus Buffalo. You went flying high into the winter break, and it's certainly not the case this year. So what we're going to do, the last time we were on, and we had Dan Rosen on, and that was on December 18th, we're going to do what we try to do here to keep things in line, and that is do things in chronological order here in terms of events, because it's the easiest way to do it. Or we could jump around left and right, and it kind of helps us kind of stay gravitated and somewhat sane. So Dan Rosen was on with us when we were on last 2 weeks ago, and one of the questions we asked, now what we do here, if you don't know, is, and you probably don't know this, I'm giving away some Undefeated Media secrets of how we work here. So when the show ends, B-Rock and I usually conversed for a couple minutes and discuss what did we just have in our 45-minute show that is clip-worthy, right? That we can condense, put on Instagram, and then people will be interested in reacting or engaging with it. And B-Rock obviously does a phenomenal job with it. Well, one of the things we talked about after that show was the question that Dan Rosen answered, which was the last Ranger that he would trade at that point in time. And that answer was Capo Caco. Fast forward to not only 8 hours later on the same day, Capo Caco is shipped to Seattle for Will Borgen, a 3rd and 6th round pick as well. Now, nothing good comes out of that deal. I could get into, and I would like to get into, but I'm not. I could get into the fact that, well, obviously, you know, Capo Caco came here. Some people thought he was going to be better than Jack Hughes, and what a gift that the Rangers got the 2nd pick and all this stuff. And it just obviously never panned out because here you are trading a player for a defenseman at that point I never heard of, and a 3rd and 6th round pick that if you are going to be realistic with, in the Rangers' track record of not only drafting, but then part 2 of drafting is developing the talent that they draft, chances are that 3rd and 6th round pick will not amount to anything. Right now, the Rangers, when they get it right, they get a pick like Henrik Lundqvist right in the 7th round, and they kind of, fall into that because obviously he wouldn't have been a 7th round pick if anyone knew. So chances are the history will tell you that the Rangers won't even pick right. What frustrates me, and I mentioned it that night because I did one of those car stories or whatever that we do when things happen, is if you think back, now this was never confirmed, and if someone's watching and they can confirm this, if they know this is true or not, you feel free to put it in the chat. But what I would say is remember with Jack Eichel 2 years ago or 3 years ago, and Buffalo was rumored to be trading him, and Chris Drury was interested in acquiring him. And the names that were thrown out that Buffalo wanted that made the Rangers say, no, hold on a minute, I don't know if we're going to do that, were both Vitaly Kravtsov, who is now not even in the league anymore. I believe he's in Russia, and also is Capo Caco. So when you think about that it has now come to getting rid of someone that was once, deemed such high prospect, such a high ceiling, to get rid of him for Will Borgen and 2 draft picks that will amount to nothing is not overly exciting or is going to get you happy, right? So nothing about the Kako trade is good. To the games, 2 nights later, they go to Dallas. Now, they win in Dallas, which is obviously surprising because Dallas is a very good team. And Dallas is probably has as good of a chance as coming out of the Western Conference and representing them to play for the Stanley Cup in June as anyone. Dallas is good. Their defense is good. They're coached well. Jake Ottinger in goal. Plenty of good players there. So the Rangers go and play a good road game and win. What's frustrating about that, if I'm going to be negative, because that's just what everything is right now, there's 2 things that just annoy me when I think about that game. One, it indicates that the talent is still there, right? So to go out and go into Dallas, beat Dallas, shows you're capable of winning any night, right? I mean, that's not an easy thing to do, and they go out and they do that. And then second is that, again, Rempe with a stupid penalty. Like, what is going on? It's the similar situation. It's late in the game. You're up 1. You do a stupid thing in an elbow, and that results in an 8-game suspension. And I wanted him to be suspended for 90 games because I wouldn't have to talk about him anymore. But it just is so consistent. Like, it's I've seen the script before. I didn't like the book the first time. I didn't like the book the second time. And I didn't like it the 36th time. Why am I seeing it for 75th time? Enough with Matt Rempe. But the Rangers hold on and win. Now, a key part here, 2 days later, they come home and they play Carolina. Now, you have good vibes because you just won in Dallas. You're not happy about the Kako trade, but you're happy, obviously, that, you won in Dallas. Carolina comes in. They're going to be a challenge. Carolina is very good. Any Ranger fan knows that. And less than 20 seconds into the game, Jimmy Vesey scores. And it's at that moment, and I will admit that I fell for this, right? It is a Sunday afternoon. It is freezing last Sunday, or a week ago Sunday when this game happened. I mean, it is like 10 degrees outside. So you're inside. You're happy to be inside. You have no reason to watch the Jets or Giants that day. That game is irrelevant, right? Maybe you're in the fantasy playoffs. And now you have a game versus Carolina, and you're up 1-0 20 minutes in. And you think to yourself, in that moment of time, I just watched them beat Dallas in Dallas 36 hours ago. I am now playing Carolina at home, and 20 seconds into the game, my 4th line starts the game and score. Maybe this is the turnaround. They have turned it around. This is that point, that turning point, that Connor Mackey situation last year in Ottawa, that they are going to come out and turn it around. And of course, what happens is they have a very, very bad second period, and they go on to lose the game. They lose with an empty netter. What bothered me also about that game is in the third period when they were down 1, and they were down 1 most of the third period, they didn't generate a lot of quality opportunities. Like, there were not a lot of chances there where they had, really good chances to tie the game at all. And that, to me, is certainly something that I was concerned with. I believe, if I remember correctly, they even had a few power plays in the third period, and you didn't even realize they were on the power play, which down 1 bothers you. So the next day they play the Devils. Now, I got to tell you a personal situation. I go to Mexico that Monday, a week ago Monday. We fly down to Mexico. The Ranger Devil game is at 1:00. United Airlines, which is what we flew, has Wi-Fi. So I should be able to, and I was able to, watch the game on the MSG Gotham app, which now is a big thing because Optimum now doesn't have MSG. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Wow.
So we fly, right? Now we're maybe like an hour and a half before landing in Cancun, because I think we landed at like 2:30. So my thought is, it's probably not going to be pretty, but at least instead of staring into an abyss out the window or watching Instagram or TikTok videos like I've been doing for the previous 3 hours, I'm going to go out and I'm going to watch the game. Right away, Jack Hughes scores. There is, I don't even know what I can take out of that game positive. There's probably nothing. Right now, the Rangers do not belong on the same ice as the Devils to begin with. And B-Rock will enjoy me saying that. And if you watch that game, and again, I only saw the first and second period, because then we ended up standing in customs line for forever. But you could see that the speed of the Devils killed the Rangers. And it was that exact thing 2 years ago in the playoff series that the Rangers lost in 7 games. That was the number one culprit as to why they lost, was the Devils' speed killed them 2 years ago. Chris Kreider got scratched that game. I have no problem with it at all. Now, look, if you're not performing, you are susceptible to being scratched, right? And Chris Kreider is not performing. Now, you want to say that there are other names, maybe that begin with an M and end with an A, that should be, have the same treatment put on him. That's fine. But I didn't have a problem with them scratching Chris Kreider, because Chris Kreider hasn't been good. And I also figured going into that Devil game, there was probably a 1-2% chance that they won. So I had no real thought process that it didn't bother me. Because Chris Kreider was scratched, it obviously led to an enormous amount of speculation that maybe he was traded, right? Maybe there was a trade in the work and he was held out of the lineup, similar to like when Jacob Trouba was held out of the lineup against Anaheim a couple weeks earlier. Similar thing. And the NHL does this thing, and I like it actually, where from like December 23rd until December 29th, they do this holiday freeze kind of thing, or to December 28th, where players cannot be traded. And they do this to protect them and their families, right? Over Christmas, you don't want to get a call on Christmas Eve, hey, you've just been traded to Columbus. You've just been traded to Anaheim. So you know that if you're going to assume that there is a chance, and it was fair to assume that Chris Kreider was dealt, you weren't going to know that answer until Saturday the 28th. Well, it turns out that was not the case. So the Tampa game on Saturday, total coincidence. That's the day we fly back. So the flight down to Mexico, they're playing the Devils. The flight going back, we were supposed to leave at 5:00, and the game was at 7. So my thought was, again, I'll end the flight watching the game. Well, one story or another, we're delayed a long time in Mexico. By the time we get up in the air, the game is already going on. I turn it on in the second period, and they're down already a ton. So what was also to me odd about the Tampa game was there was a lot of beat reporters writing that before the game, Andre Miller said, this holiday break gave us a chance to be refreshed. And it's a different feeling now in the locker room. Well, clearly that was wrong because it just, they were never, it was just a complete ugly situation. In hindsight, I think that I would have rather, and you can't predict the future, but on both my flight down to Mexico and going back, knowing that I'm watching the Rangers live, I would have been better off staring out the window at the Gulf of Mexico at the dark night. Like I think that would have been better for me mentally than dealing with what I watched on the in-flight Wi-Fi. I mean, I really do. Like it would have been less anxiety for me if I just stared into the night. I would have been calmer. My blood pressure would have been calmer for sure. So they go to Florida Monday night. Now, right? Can I say something? And there will be people, and I know that some of you are getting at me on the chat, and that's fine. I'll get to it in a little bit. But you knew that the Florida game was going to be difficult, right? I mean, you obviously know how good Florida is. We all remember the spring. We know how the Rangers are playing. Again, they're crippled by a slow start. They're down 2-0 before you even really get seated. And again, they're not able to regroup from a slow start, get back and take a lead. Now, they were able to tie the game twice because they tied it at 2 with 2 goals in the second, within a minute of each other. And then Florida takes the lead and Kreider scores to make it 3-3. But again, you see just signs that the Rangers are not in the same echelon right now of levels as a lot of these other Eastern Conference teams, or any team for that matter right now. The other thing that comes out of Monday night in Florida is Igor goes to the injured reserve, and they announced that on New Year's Eve. Now, the Rangers, as we always say here, and it's frustrating with them, is they don't say anything, right? They never say anything with injuries. Most hockey teams don't, but I do find that the Rangers are worse than anyone, so they're not going to tell you anything other than it's an upper body injury. But not to play detective here, I think it's pretty safe to say that in the second period, Sam Bennett drove to the net, and Ryan Lindgren knocked Bennett really headfirst into Shesterkin. The Shesterkin went back. I'm going to guess it's a concussion from that hit. Now, again, the Rangers may never tell you if you're right or wrong, but that is certainly something that would be I think, fair to assume
Mm-hmm.
or safe to assume. So the next morning, right now, you've lost again, and it comes out a report. Now, David Pignata, who I love, he's been on with us many times. He's from the fourth period in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
He's a great NHL reporter. He's been on MYPB a lot. He was just on with us in September. Comes out with a report seemingly out of nowhere. Like, it's not like people were searching for this or asking this, and said, look, he's been told from sources close to the team that they believe that Mika Zibanejad would be willing to waive his no trade clause, provided, and this is why players have a no trade clause, right?
Mm-hmm.
Provided he would be happy with the situation he would be going to. So he's not going to waive his no trade clause and say, okay, you can send me to any of the 31 other teams. I'm not going to Columbus, for example. But you could sit there and say to me, look, if you could tell me I could maybe go to Toronto, which is a name I keep hearing, and Toronto has an opportunity to win, and he wouldn't have to be a top line center, of course, because Austin Matthews is there, well, then maybe I will go somewhere else if the situation is right. And people got very excited about this news, which is understandable because Mika Zibanejad has been awful.
Mm-hmm.
He is here until 2030. And he's also costing the Rangers $8.5 million against the salary cap every year. So it would certainly be advantageous for the Rangers if they didn't have this burden that they have. But if I am any of the other 31 general managers in the National Hockey League, even in Toronto, for example, up there, I am not going to take Mika Zibanejad back at full salary. I cannot do that. I can't take him back and have that $8.5 million count against me. So moving him is not as easy as people think. And it also has to go to a place, as I mentioned, where Mika not only wants to go, but that place would want him. And every 31 general managers in the league is well aware right now of the year Mika Zibanejad has had. You're looking at me like we.
No,
Okay.
I'm just. It's baffling how we're always just in a good mood to just ship everybody out.
I'm going to pull up a comment. If we could pull up Emma's comment, a pinch of cute, and that is, they play injuries close to the vest, but have no problem, airing their dirty laundry to the public. That is a great point. And obviously, the second half of that statement alludes to the whole Trouba situation as well as everything else. I mean, that is a very, very good point. So we'll pull up her other comment. It's always a little risk here when I don't see the comments ahead of time, but we'll one at the bottom. The whole team is awful. Trading Mika won't solve our real issue. The defense is non-existent. It's hard for an offense to get momentum when we practically start every game 2-0. 100% right, and we're going right down that road in a minute, Em. I promise you. It's not one problem. So we played detective as to what is wrong with Igor, why did he go to the IR. Okay. Let's play detective also and do a little game here. The Rangers have been in a free fall for the last 7 weeks, right? A free fall. Where did it start? Like the detective work. When did this all start? It's very easy to figure out. And it bothers me because I was there for this.
Uh-oh.
I went on November 7th to the game versus Buffalo.
Mm-hmm.
This was a Thursday game. At that point, the Rangers were playing great. They had just come off a couple days earlier, beating the Islanders at home. If you remember that Islander game, they didn't play particularly great. I think they let up 18 second period shots, if I remember, but they won. Vibes were high, all that stuff. That Buffalo game was the worst game I've ever been to. And it came actually seemingly out of nowhere. But since then, it has just been one thing after another. Like you could write a book about you really could. I'm not going to, but you could write a book about the last 7 weeks around here and all the things that have not gone wrong necessarily on the ice. And you could write plenty of chapters in your book about that, but you could also write chapters about all the drama off the ice. It is just a fall from grace, a fall from one of the top spots in the league that I can't ever remember a team in any of the 4 major sports doing. Like I could think about, and this is not even an answer, but if I want to think of like a local thing, I could think of the Yankees, collapsing to the Red Sox, but that was over a course of 5 days. I mean, that's not it. I'm not a Mets fan, but I remember maybe in the 2008 era, they blew like a 11-game lead with 3 weeks left, but that wouldn't be at this level either.
Yeah.
So
or maybe like when the Nets thought they were going to be good with like Kevin Durant and it was just a shit show.
That was terrible. Yeah. That
maybe close, but not even close.
No,
you
went
from number 1 kicking butt the first 20 games to what's going on.
I don't have an answer. So the question that I get asked most, I'm going to answer it because I've answered it a lot on DMs and like other stuff on a couple other podcasts I've gone on, is I've answered it, but it's seemingly the most popular question that we're getting right now. So I'm going to take it here.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, it is January 2nd. Are they capable of turning it around? Could they be?
Is it mathematically capable?
Well, mathematically, yes. But mathematically and capable and realistic are not the same thing. So are they capable of turning it around? Are they capable of being in the next example of the 2019 St. Louis Blues, where, if you remember, at New Year's Day 6 years ago, had a horrific record, ended up winning the Stanley Cup because they turned it around. So do the Rangers have the ability to turn this around? And the answer is, drum roll. Come on, give me a drum roll. The answer is no. And here's why. Because it is not. Do I see you shaking your head in the corner, B-Rock? I thought he was shaking his head in like happiness over there. The answer is no. And the answer is why? Because it's not one or two things. They have like 50 issues right now. As Emma actually just mentioned in the comments, right? It's Zibanejad, but you could trade him. That also doesn't explain how bad the defense has been. I'll get on Panarin, who's done nothing really exciting in the last few weeks. Lafreniere has completely regressed. I mean, think of what Lafreniere was in the spring and think about where he is now. I mean, he's nowhere near where he was. So defensively, they've been terrible. Keandre Miller's been terrible. It's hard for me to think of a player on the team, maybe other than someone who has the name Will Cooley, that has actually been decent. So there are so many issues. The team looks like they are checked out. I don't think all of a sudden they wake up from this and check themselves back in. Yes, you want to say something?
So in 1987.
Oh, look at you, history buff.
Yeah, the Toronto Maple Leafs made the playoffs with a record of 21, 49, and 10. Okay, that was 1987. Obviously, things have changed, and I'm sure like leagues and rules and whatever. But they made the playoffs with 21 wins, 49 losses, and 10 ties. So, is there a mathematically way just to make the playoffs?
Yeah, they're certainly not mathematically eliminated. And I will get to the Zach Jones news for those of you asking. In a minute, I will get to that as well as some of your other comments. I promise Zach Jones stuff is coming. To answer your question, are they mathematically eliminated? No. But here's the other thing. They are now 7 points out of the last wild card spot, which is not impossible to overcome. But what is a challenge about that when you look a little further is you are 7 points out of the last wild card spot, but there are also 7 teams that are ahead of you that are out of the wild card as well. Mm-hmm. So you have to leapfrog 6 other teams while catching other teams. Plus, they have one of the hardest schedules mathematically remaining in the league, and their goalie is now an injured reserve. I mean, I don't want to say that it's over and it's impossible, but
pretty damn close.
But it's close. I mean, it is close. And their schedule coming up is daunting. I'm going to tell you something and how you know that I've kind of, in some ways, my frustration level. They play the Bruins tonight, and they play Washington on Saturday. I have free tickets. I have a family member that can get free tickets to events in D.C., sporting events. So I go a lot. We went last year to the Ranger game there. 2 years ago, I went with my son Tyler. The Rangers were there on a Saturday. The Knicks were there actually on a Friday night, so we went down. The whole plan was we were going to leave tomorrow night after the kids were done with school and go down to DC for the weekend, right? And I already had the hotel rooms booked tomorrow night in DC. I cannot right now justify taking the kids tomorrow night and sitting in a car for 5 hours to just get there, right? Pass out, wake up. It's a 12 o'clock game. And I can't, just to see him get blown out, I can't do it. That I've actually turned down, which is hard for me to do, but should give you a sign of how bad things are, that I have turned down tickets, free tickets, and good seats in D.C. on Saturday for the Rangers. I am not going. I am not going. I have canceled the Marriott reservations. We are not going. That should tell you how bad it is. All right, Zach Jones, because that is one of the questions, and I'll let me get to that. Zach Jones yesterday comes out And again, this is all about writing your book about this season, and this is another thing that you can write about in the on the off the ice stuff. Comes out publicly. Now, I don't have a problem with Zach Jones saying it publicly, if I'm being honest with you. If he's frustrated because he's not in the lineup and he wants to air that out publicly, I don't have a problem with it. I don't. If he wants to be unhappy that he's not playing, that's his prerogative, right? Where I would disagree, I have never said, and there's been plenty of, I think we clipped it actually on Instagram. I mean, you've been here every single show. I think you've missed one.
Yeah, when I was giving birth.
Yes, that was the one you missed. Yes. There's a story about show that day, actually, when you were giving birth. It wasn't this show, but in these studios. But I remember that.
Another show.
Check your headphone volume.
Yeah.
Have I ever been a Zach Jones fan?
Not really.
No. I don't have a problem with Zach Jones not playing. I don't think Zach Jones is good.
But you'd help him pack his bags if you needed.
I'd help him pack his bags. I'd pay for his Uber to LaGuardia. I would. But Zach Jones to me is just, he's never been that good. I don't think he's terrible, but I don't think he's that good. And obviously the coaching staff or management, or a combination of both, probably feel the same way. Because right now the Rangers defense is terrible. If you can't break into any of those 6 defensive spots right now when the defense is playing bad, that should tell you what the coaching staff thinks of you. I mean, I don't have a problem with Zach Jones making the comments, but I also don't disagree. I don't agree that he should be in the lineup. I don't think it makes a difference. Like, I don't think it matters. Are the Rangers going to win games right now?
He's shocked that he's not getting ice time.
He's shocked he's not in the lineup. Yeah, he's not getting ice time at all. 0. But he has, again, I'm just reiterating. Yeah. He's not good. He's not. We talk about this a lot. Now, look, Zach Jones is a nice guy. I met Zach Jones. My wife and kids, we were with Zach Jones last October. I had pictures of my wife. Yeah, I believe they're on Instagram.
Like the day before, you were like,
not the day before. That day we were live, and I was ripping Zach Jones.
And then you're
hey. 6 hours later, I have a picture of my wife and kids with Zach Jones at the Javits Center in New York City. True story. That was season ticket holder event. Zach Jones could not have been nicer. Like, to my kids, he was probably the nicest guy that day after I ripped him 6 hours earlier. However, he's not that good. Again, like, he's not. He's not Brian Leach. He's not Adam Fox. What do you think? He's Zach Jones. And Emma's point, which is fair, which is that at least he doesn't hurt the team on the ice like K'Andre Miller. Yeah. K'Andre Miller's been abysmal, but that's a story for another day. So, more stuff. Elliot Freedman, who is a respected...
Not related to me in what's name.
I'm surprised because here's why I'm surprised. He's Canadian. And as you like to remind us around here, the national sport in Canada is not hockey. It's what?
Lacrosse.
You were a lacrosse god in the state of New Jersey. Yes. So Elliot Freedman the other day is on a podcast. Yeah. And I listened to it. So I give people a lot of credit that listen to MYPB. I don't have the time in my day or my life to listen to podcasts at all for anything. I just don't have the time. So the fact that you all give us your time, I'm like beyond grateful, and I love you all. I listened yesterday. Matter of fact, Tyler comes in the room and he thought I was on a podcast because he knows I don't listen to them, but I was listening to one. Elliot Freedman the other day comes on and says a lot of interesting things, and I'm going to quote a bunch about some of the things he said about the Rangers. Quote, obviously their surgery isn't finished, end quote. And he says that it seems that they have quit on the team, each other, and the organization, which I think we all know. But I think when you hear it from someone like him, it does kind of annoy you a little bit more. And he said, and again, quote, it is legendary to go from where they were 6 weeks ago to now, especially in the NHL. And this is where he brings up a good point because of the loser point, which is meaning that if you go to overtime and you lose, you still get a point. Rangers aren't getting points in any fashion. And the last quote that I took out of the podcast from him was that they have caved in within 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's crazy. President's Cup winners can't win anything.
Now, what bothered me most about the stuff that he said was when he said that and again, we all agree with this, that it just seems that they've quit on the team and each other and they just don't care. They're not even they're not playing, right? So then I went yesterday and I tried to think of like a real life situation I could use in my 44 years that made me think of something similar. I'm going to tell you what I thought of. It is not apples to apples, but I thought of this, and I thought of this again at 3:00 in the morning when I was thinking about the Rangers last night, which was stupid. But when I was 23, okay, I got my first job out of college. I was working for a marketing company. Great, no wowie, right? And I started there in February. So this was February of 2003. Okay. There was a guy there. I'm going to say his name because I know he's no longer with us, but he was an older guy, and his name was Peter Byrne. Okay. He was like my boy, right? I was 23. He was probably in his 50s or whatever. He was my favorite guy there, right? There was a Thursday in June. Okay. I had to leave work early. It was the first time that at that point, I had been there 4 months. I had to leave work early because Jenny from the block and I, who we had only been dating, for 4 or 5 weeks. We had a wedding of her neighbor's daughter.
Wow. So you guys been dating for 4 weeks. You're already going to wedding functions?
We went to weddings. She actually went to Florida with me. 4th of July weekend. Actually, the week after. And it's not the point. So we left and we went to a wedding. Okay. Thursday night. I was telling people at the wedding, because I didn't know anyone in her family or their friends. And
we just met.
I was telling people at the wedding about my job. And there's one guy, Peter Byrne, we hang out, whatever. And they probably didn't give a shit. And that's fine. I don't care. The next morning, true story, I went into work late because we drank so much at the wedding that I went home. Her parents drove in their old Explorer, and I was like beyond sick in the backseat coming across the Tappan Zee Bridge.
Is this the first time you're meeting them?
No. So we come home. The next day, I go into work late.
Okay.
Peter Byrne.
Yeah, your boy. Peter.
My boy.
Your boy Peter.
Was fired the night before. That night, I was at the wedding out of the blue. Now, this was my first, corporate real world experience of something like this happening. Now, I was getting paid $30,000 a year. That was my salary back then. And I was annoyed that my boy, who looked out for me and I hung out with every day, got canned. But what did I do? I didn't quit. I had to keep working, right? I was getting paid $30,000 a year. I was eventually going to try and move out of my house and do something with my life that I had to keep working. The Rangers and get people like Zibanejad and all these people that are not playing right now and are getting paid all the money, they've all quit on the team. That's not acceptable.
Yeah.
Of all the things that happened,
we kicked out of the league.
Of all the things that have happened, that is the most frustrating. Is the fact that they don't care. Like they don't even look like they care that they want to play hockey.
Yeah.
And I'll even go as far as this. It's not on Peter Laviolette, because people are saying now, Laviolette should be fired. Like Sean Avery, who don't even get me started on, is sitting here saying, Peter Laviolette should be fired. What is that going to do? It's not on Peter Laviolette. Peter Laviolette, by the way, is 60 years old. He just turned 60, I think, a month ago. If I was him right now, right, and I'm trying to think like if I was Peter Laviolette, I'm under contract for, I think, another 2 years or whatever it is. I'm going to get paid regardless if they fire me or not. Why do I want to deal with this day in or day out? There's nothing I can do to get through to them. He's coached forever. He's going to get paid regardless. And the organization here doesn't like the players, clearly, and vice versa. He's the guy who's stuck in the middle. So you have on one side of him, you have the people above him, which is management and Chris Drury, who's not getting along with the people of the other side of him and the players. Why would he want to be here? Right?
Yeah.
Why? Why?
So like, why isn't he when he's having press conferences and stuff? He's not leaving some breadcrumbs. Like, these guys just don't want to play for me. Like.
He knows it, but there's nothing he can do, right? There's a lot as a coach you can do. You can change lines, and you can even see it. He's not even been changing the lines as much as he could be for a team that's in a complete free fall, because the issue is not the lines. It's an issue of the fact that this core has run its course.
Well, they're all crying over they shipped their boy off. They're just crying over the Trouba.
But it's more than that, Doug. There's so many things going on. So to go back to it, are they going to turn it around and make the playoffs? No, they're not. Now, I would say that I would watch the game tonight because they're playing the Bruins, because I watch every game, right? Even though I'd be annoyed. I can't watch the game because I woke up yesterday morning to a text from Optimum on my phone that we are no longer carrying MSG Network.
Before you go down that road.
Yes.
Because I got that too, and I don't know what that means, and I want to know. But before you go down that road, does this not help your own career if you play like dog shit?
Yes.
So
Thank you. So if your stats are bad because you're playing like crap and you're not going to be
you're
here,
crying and whining,
your next contract, you're going to get less money.
Exactly. So why don't you take out your revenge when you come up to your next contract? Like, if you don't want to be here, then don't sign here, right? Like you're doing nothing. You're doing yourself a disservice by playing this terribly, because now you can't go anywhere and play. No one's going to want you. Who would want to get the kid the crybaby?
You're right. I'm going to take some of the comments right now on Instagram because you guys are all saying the same thing. Jason, Frank is saying the same thing. Derek, even to an extent. Firing Laviolette does not fix this problem.
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to get a new coach in here and maybe they respond to it temporarily, short term.
It's not going to do anything.
It's not going to do anything. And those of you that I see want Quenneville, and I think Joe Quenneville's a great coach. I don't think Joe Quenneville's the answer here, and I don't know that he's the answer anywhere.
There's
because
no coach that's
but
the answer.
The problem with Quenneville is, if you remember, he was suspended from the league because of the incident that happened in Chicago. He brings a PR nightmare with him,
Mm-hmm.
and that's nothing against his coaching ability. This team does not need any more attention drawn to them.
There's no coach that would be the answer, and the only coach that would be the answer is a coach that comes in and says, like, "Screw you, Drury," like,
can't. Drury's
their
boss.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. There's no coach that's the answer.
Yeah. So I don't necessarily think that they will turn it around. I think what you may see, so you'll see later today, we do this segment on Instagram we started last month where we predict the games for the upcoming month. So I've done the predictions for all the January games, whether they win or lose each and every game.
Mm-hmm.
And that will come out this afternoon. And what you'll notice in the schedule is this. They play Boston tonight, then they're at Washington, at Chicago, home versus Dallas, home versus the Devils, at Vegas, at Colorado. That is a murderous next 6 and 7 games. I mean, it's brutal. Like, other than the Chicago game, and you can't tell me Chicago's easy because the Rangers lost to Chicago at home last month, they could lose all 7 games. There is a part of the schedule after that temporarily. If I'm going off my memory, they have Columbus at home, which I think I'm going to that game, which now I'm regretting. They play Ottawa at home after that. They play Montreal. They play Philly. There's some room in there where, like, if you could tread water here in the next couple weeks and then take advantage of that part of your schedule, I guess. But then you can
be like undefeated the next 2 weeks to just like maybe have a shot.
And that's why you're wearing the undefeated hat today. Yeah. And Michael reminding me we lost to the Flyers. I was there in Philly for that game. So do I see, and it's a good question. We'll pull up Karen's question. Do you see any correlation with the players who are having children? So 2 players in particular here to that point is Mika and Igor. I would like to think. Now, I don't know how the mega rich people of the world live. I don't know. So Mika Zibanejad has a daughter last year. When my wife and I had our kids, particularly our first kid, which is where Mika was, you don't have a clue what's going on, right? You can read the books, you can take the classes, but like you don't, you don't know.
Yeah.
So what a lot of people do, if you have money, you go out and you get a baby nurse for a week because this is all they do. They show you how to deal with it, right?
Yeah, we didn't get one of those, but
I would think Mika Zibanejad, with the amount of money he has, could afford a pretty decent baby,
or at least a book.
A book.
But I will say, like, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, everyone's probably different. When you have your kid, you have like a new little bit of energy of life. You're like, wow, like I'm a dad now. Like I have little, yes, you're up all night and you're tired, but you find a way to get through your day and you're like,
But if Mika Zibanejad is having a kid, right, and you have a job where you are expected to perform like anyone is in whatever job you do for a living, you're expected to perform for someone to some sort of level. And you're getting paid $8.5 million. Guess what? You've got to find a way to still perform. Have your baby sleep in the other room.
Your baby's gonna think you're a loser, dude. This is your legacy. When your kid grows up, they're gonna be like, he was part of that team that totally messed the shit up.
Yeah, I don't get it. And with Igor too. I mean, in Igor's defense, I'm not as critical about Igor. Has not had a great year. I will admit that. But Igor has also had to face an enormous amount of high-quality chances every single game, which last year was not at this case. So So they're scheduled the next week before we're back on Wednesday. They are home tonight versus the Bruins, at the Caps on Saturday, at Chicago on Sunday, and then hockey fights cancer night at MSG, which is always a good night on Tuesday against Dallas. Yes.
How are we going to watch these games?
Well, that's the thing. Is MSG, and this is a bad joke, but are they actually doing me a favor that I can? Now, here's the thing. You can watch. I have the Gotham app, which is what I used on the airline.
Because I had the Gotham app, and it was free when I had when it
yeah,
to Optimum.
That's a good question. I don't know. That's actually why it was free. Yeah, I don't know now.
You log into Optimum through your Optimum account.
That's a great question.
Gotham, and you would have it. So
because I'm not paying for it.
Like $5 a month, you have to pay.
I don't know.
Let's find out.
That's
right now.
That's a very good question. So, but the schedule gets harder, and I might not be able to watch, which may be for the better. So we shall see. But just the total what?
So I just typed in sign up for Gotham Sports App. Right.
You know what? Someone's saying that it's in the comment above. I don't see. You know what, Michael? If you could put it in again, because we don't see all the comments at one time. Put it in the thing.
So I typed in Gotham Sports App, and that's the number that pops up for main screen. $359. $24.
$24.
$24.
They're saying it's $24
a year.
Probably. Is it worth it for me? So here's the thing: they play tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Then Saturday they're on ABC.
Okay.
Sunday they'd be on MSG, and they'd be on MSG a lot coming up. Actually, it's just the Saturday game that's not. I have a hockey game myself that I play in the league. I have a game at 6:45, so I would miss the first half of the game anyway tonight. By the time I get home, the Rangers are probably down 4-0. So, yeah. Okay, $24. Thank you, Skunky, and thank you, Michael, for putting that in the chart.
I want to see what happens. Continue. I'm going to see what happens because I did it because I was watching in the car one day when we were going somewhere.
I tried to do it last night out of curiosity for the Knicks game.
And what happened?
Something was wrong with I couldn't get to the screen. It wasn't the app. I had trouble getting to the screen. But I did a test run last night because the Knicks were playing the Jazz at home, and I couldn't even get to the part where you would find out. All right, so in happier news, because the Rangers are all bad news, we did finish the NFL season on a winning record for the year. We made you some money, so that's 4 of the last 5 years. We had a perfect week in our last week of picks, which was week number 16. We had the Chargers -2.5 at home against Denver on Thursday night. They won that by more than that. We had the Chiefs 2.5 at home versus the Texans last Saturday. They won by more than that. We loved the Lions -6.5 at the Bears. I think they won by 17. We had the Dolphins -1 at home versus the 49ers. And the Raiders -1 at home versus the Jaguars. So we had all of that right. The Eagles this weekend for week 18, which is a tough week to pick because some teams aren't playing for anything. Some people are resting starters. But I'm going to give you our 5 picks anyway because that's what we do around here. The Eagles -2.5 at home versus the Giants. The Cowboys +5 at home versus the Commanders. The Texans -1 at Tennessee. The Dolphins -1 at the Jets, which is weird to me because the Dolphins are playing for something and the Jets are not. And the 49ers +4 at Arizona. So to recap, Eagles -2.5 at home versus the Giants. Cowboys +5 at home versus the Commanders. Texans -1 at Tennessee. Dolphins -1 at the Jets. And the 49ers +4 at Arizona.
Looks like I got kicked out. I have access. I'm in. But it looks like I have to get a subscription.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll find out tonight. I'm not sure that I want to find out tonight, but I will. What is your thought before we go, while we do a little NFL, on the New York Giants winning a meaningless game so that now they don't have the top pick?
Vomit everywhere. A meaningless game. It was almost like a kick in the nuts to the whole fan base. It's where was this energy? Where was this skill the whole season? And you're going to win a meaningless game by 40. You're going to put 45 points on the board and just get your draft pick from number 1. You have the number 1 pick.
Where are they at now? Where do they drop?
4. The best I think that possible right now is 4. And if they lose and if they win again this week, then they're at 8. So, what are you doing? That whole both franchises.
Chris with some answers. ESPN Plus with a VPN Lets you pick your city.
Oh, hey now.
Oh, illegal streams, or you
Yeah.
ask a friend with Verizon to share their password for Gotham Sports. All right, so here's a question, Chris. I have ESPN Plus.
Me too. But
Would
you can't watch.
What if it's not on
those
ESPN
games.
Plus?
It is on, but you're not allowed to watch it because you're in the area.
No, but I can watch it on ESPN Plus. I previously have watched games on ESPN Plus in the area.
Yeah, but that was because you're probably connected to your TV provider.
No, I'd go through Roku. I'll play around with it tonight. I don't even care.
ESPN Plus, you can watch some games that aren't local games. So you could probably watch if it's on ESPN, like Thursday night hockey on ESPN, right? You can watch it because it's on ESPN. But if it's only on MSG, you can't watch it on ESPN on ESPN Plus unless you're not in that city. Yeah. So you have to. The VPN tells the computer that you're in Alaska.
I feel like when I hear about these things, or I've seen other cable people have issues with channels, I mean, it always gets resolved at some point. But why would I be racing to? And Chris is telling me that the hockey rink that I'm at tonight has Verizon that I'm playing.
And also, too, why isn't MSG racing to be on TV to collect ad revenue when all your teams stink right now?
Well, they don't all stink. The Knicks have won 9 in a row.
Okay.
The Knicks are, you know what? We might. I don't know that I'm going to do this, but we will have to have a meeting with people here about the springtime. We might be covering that. I mean, we won't cover the Knicks to the level we cover the Rangers, but you might find the Knicks as a regular segment. I mean, I got to talk about something positive. I can't just keep talking about tanking for draft picks.
I mean, you didn't have to tank. Just 45 points. 45 points. It was honestly an insult to your fan base. I feel like you lost every home game. You're going to win this one and lose your draft pick, the number 1 draft pick.
Yep.
Sador Sanders was putting pictures up of New York Giant cleats that he was ready to rock in MetLife. Unless they didn't want him, they're like, hey, let's not get him. Let's move on.
We shall see. So that is it for today. Again, we wish you a happy new year and hopefully better things for the Rangers in 2025. We thank the Bamboozle Project for their sponsorship. Check out thebamboozleproject.com. Use promo code MYPB. Save yourself 20% off your total order. We thank DraftKings as well. Again, you can always send us your questions at any time at mindyourpuckingbusiness@gmail.com, as well as at mindyourpuckingbusiness. You can reach us there. And hopefully, look, the Rangers have not lost yet in 2025. Look at it from a positive point of view. We will talk to you next week.